everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm the host, Sean Boyce. I'd like to welcome my guest and one of my favorite people in the world, Markita Morris-Louis from Compass Working Capital. Hi, Markita. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Hi, Sean. I'm great. I'm really, really happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, I'd be surprised if you're happier than I am, but thank you for that sentiment. I really appreciate that. Markita, you're one of my favorite people, and you've done so much amazing work in the nonprofit and impact world. So I'm going to try to tell the story as best as I can, but you've done so much. It will be very hard to do in a 20, 30-minute window, but we'll try our best. What would be great is kind of learn from you a little bit so our listeners can become a little bit more familiar, those that don't know. Can you share a little bit more in terms of your background and how you got to where you are today?
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. And you are definitely one of my favorite people. And I'm excited to dig in to why and how we met and first connected some years ago. So I am a North Philly girl, born and raised, although I have spent time in other parts of our fair country and also other parts of the world. But I have Philly is my home, and I've come back here, and I never let go of my accent, both figuratively
Love it.
and literally. So my kind of life, I grew up in federally subsidized housing, and so that is important because it shapes and impacts the work I do today. I As I got older and kind of understood the world better and why things were the way they were, I started to explore community development and understood how my neighborhood, my community, was shaped and formed by national policy, far, far away from North Philly and West Poplar in particular. My grandparents were originally from Mobile, Alabama, but we're part of the Great Migration of African Americans in the early part of the 20th century, making their way north, trying to leave and flee, frankly, the degradations of the South. And unfortunately, they didn't find the North to be much more hospitable, but they were able to make a way and build a family here. So that's absolutely a part of my legacy. And I think I try to draw connections and ties between my grandparents' lives and the, kind of struggles that they found in the South with our experience in the North as well, and why community development, economic prosperity, and financial inclusion have been such valuable parts of my personal life, but also my professional goals and career experience. So I've spent the last 20 years in housing, affordable housing, in policy development around housing affordability and housing finance. I also kind of work more from placemaking and the people support at a HUD certified housing counseling agency, helping families avoid foreclosure, thinking about the systems that make it difficult for families who are experiencing poverty to move ahead in their lives. And now my work at Compass is really focused on ending asset poverty. That means supporting families and building wealth, families with low incomes to build wealth as a pathway out of poverty. And we do that through high quality, culturally centered financial coaching and integrate that with the asset building opportunity. We really truly see our work as helping to narrow the racial and gender wealth divides because the majority of the families we support are led by Black and or Latinx women and with children in those households. And a big part of our work is shaping policy so we can create the conditions to allow families with low incomes to build assets.
Thank you for sharing, Markita. Such an incredible, impressive, just amazing story, and getting into the greater detail with Compass and how you're driving impact, which is where I'd love to go next. I've had, the luckiest opportunity in the world to be able to, work with you for several years and help you, with pursuing a lot of that opportunity as well too. But the mission is so important. And that's kind of what I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about next in terms of the mission at Compass, what some of that means, and what does it look like? How do you define impact? And then we'll get into kind of how Compass is driving impact today.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, Sean, to have this conversation with you about that because you've been part of our journey for almost the last 3 years, which is amazing. So, our work starts from a very simple position that we all need assets in order to invest in our future and move our families forward. But unfortunately, many families with low incomes are living in asset poverty, which basically means they don't have enough assets to cover even 3 months of basic living expenses without income. So if you experience a disruption in income, you lose your job or your hours are reduced, most families, that kind of situation turns into a full blown financial calamity. And savings is hard won and hard fought in America to begin with. There's all kinds of studies saying that 40% of Americans, don't have access to $400 in case of an emergency. And so we're definitely thinking about how can we change our society, change our economy so that families with low income can have access to these assets, which allow them to move out of poverty, think long term, dream, and set aspirations for their family. And oftentimes, folks think it requires some completely new and in an innovative way of working with these families. But we have the tools, right? We just haven't properly exploited the tools or allowed them to scale. And we also haven't explored the ways that our anti poverty programs often discourage or penalize savings and create barriers from families, right? And all of this is also part of like our historic and systemic policy challenges that have made it difficult for Black families in particular to build wealth. So, one of the ways that we've been trying to work and expand the scope of our impact is through a particularly promising approach, which is an asset building model for a federal program through the Department of Housing and Urban Development called Family Self Sufficiency. And family self sufficiency basically allows families who live in subsidized housing to convert rent payments into savings. And our real vision is that this kind of opportunity becomes the norm and not the exception. And our nation's delivery of federally subsidized housing, you kind of reimagining the safety net and what it could do for families, and having a social safety net that actually believes in and invests in people to break cycles of poverty rather than keep them in cycles of poverty. So that's how we're thinking about our work and we're thinking about our impact. For example, with the Family Self Sufficiency Program, we estimate that there are about 2.2 million households nationally that could participate. Unfortunately, only about 65 to 75,000 who do. So that's around 3% of eligible households. And we're trying to do work both on the direct service, working directly with affordable housing providers. We're trying to do work through training and technical assistance, kind of leveraging our best practices and promising learning to support other housing providers to do that work, and in a policy environment to change the conditions so that we close that gap between the 65,000 who are currently enrolled in this program and the 2.2 million who could and should be at the end of the day. And one of the models that we've been exploring is, what if we change the default for enrollment, right? The way it works now, you have to live in a housing provider that's offering this program. You have to be aware of this program. You have to trust that it's true. When we tell families that, oh, if you enroll in this program and just by paying your rent, you get to build savings, they think it's insane. They think it's way too good to be true. So, you have to trust it, understand it, become aware of it, and then enroll. And then enrollment itself is its own process. We want to do away with all of that. We want to reimagine the system. And we want to use the best of existing processes, right? And one of those is kind of an invention of behavioral economics. And we use it when it comes to employer-sponsored retirement programs. When folks go to work, they show up, they are automatically enrolled into their company's 401k. And most of the times, folks don't have to do anything. Just a simple act of being employed gives you access to the savings opportunity. You can opt out if you choose not to participate, but the default is that you're in until you say you're out. We want to apply that same model to this program, that if a family receives a voucher, a housing choice voucher from a housing authority, or they move into public housing or into privately owned affordable housing, we want them to have this asset account, this opportunity to build savings baked into the delivery of that housing. So there's nothing for them to do but to do the thing they're already doing. So again, these tools exist. We have to just be creative enough and innovative enough to activate them, to serve more people and to serve more people better. And then they leverage that service to really transform the ways family interact with our social safety net. And just, a little bit in terms of impact, we've kind of grown our programs from super modest 16 years ago, serving about 10 families to now serving 3,000 families. We're working with a number of housing providers over 7 states. We are helping families save on average $8,500 over just 4 years. We're helping families grow their earned income by $17,000. Our average family we work with starts at an income of around $22,000. And one of the things we're really measuring, and I mentioned asset poverty, and that's not having 3 months of savings in order to basically meet your basic expenses or live at the federal poverty level for 3 months. For a family of three, and that's the average household size we serve, that's about $5,757. So 5757 is the magic number. So we're helping families save on average $8,500. We're moving them from being asset poor to asset secure. And that's one of the anchoring outcomes where we're trying to have a ton of impact, helping families build their nest egg. So God forbid the next crisis, like the pandemic, comes around, families are ready and have some savings that they can fall back on to support themselves and stay out of complete financial calamity. And just to put a finer point on, I think about, if we had invested upfront in every family, particularly families with low incomes, having access to the savings opportunity, maybe our country wouldn't have had to invest so many resources in trying to roll out rental assistance and tax credits and other kind of reactive financial investments once the pandemic hit and it became clear that folks were losing jobs and opportunity. So that's why we are very much intent on having impact through asset building, and our work is really focused on ending asset poverty for families with low incomes.
There's so much amazing content in what you just said. I don't even know where to start. My head is spinning. I have so many questions, and the first thing I want to start off with is I've always been so impressed by your leadership, your vision, and the process as well too, because you are in such a easy to understand but articulate way. You eloquently describe what the biggest problem is standing in the way of reaching the kind of scale and impact that you want to do. And Compass Working Capital, led by you and your amazing team, has always just provided such great examples of what it looks like to identify the biggest problem and to solve it in a big way. So I have to give you all the credit in the world. I love having conversations with anyone on your team because we're always thinking big, which is so exciting to be part of something so special. So I would love to hear more from you in terms of what you credit that culture or vision to in terms of doing this remarkable work, and what other organizations can learn from you and your team, because I know not everyone is kind of at that level. I know Compass is always thinking big and has game-changing ideas that they're working on executing at any given time. But I would love to hear what you have in terms of your best advice for the other leaders out there who would like to create a similar type environment, right? Have the ability to explore these things and think really creatively, just like you did, right? Understanding that the program utilization is like severely underwhelming, right? But it creates these dramatic transformations for the people that need it most. And instead, flipping the model on its head to say, essentially kind of like automatic enrollment through the most obvious and like easiest mechanisms in order to make that a reality. The transformation that can make it scale is it's almost overwhelming, the size and impact that can have. So anyway, I'll stop talking, and I'd love to hear more from you in terms of how, where this inspiration comes from and how you've created such a remarkable culture that delivers just these dramatic results.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much, Sean. So I have as many things floating through my head in response as you did in formulating that question. I will say that our organization was founded centering excellence. And kind of the cornerstone or hallmark of Compass's early days was just being a really high quality, high standard bearing organization, delivering the best possible services to people who deserve the best possible services and often we're not receiving them by our social safety net. So our culture the early stages of Compass's culture were really centered around delivering high quality services to families, um, and because they should just have access to high quality services and resources. But in particular, families experiencing poverty often interact with systems that are dignity stripping and are unforgiving and are infantilizing. And we wanted to have a completely different experience. So, from our founders, from the very beginning, we hired people who had passion, compassion, right? One of our amazing staff members coined the term, you can't spell compassion without compass. So that is the centerpiece of our work, of a deep fundamental belief in people, and an interest in investing in people and trusting them and trusting that they're experts in their own lives. So I think that is one of our fundamental values, and it undergirds everything we do. And so we had steadily and slowly built a reputation of being a very solid organization, that really centered people's voices in our work. And when I was brought on, we were at this moment. I started at Compass as Chief Strategy Officer before I became CEO. And one of my charges was to help scale this program and scale our work, in leaving very much intact our strong outcomes, this culture of client centeredness, our culture of learning. And that also requires resources. So one of the things that helped us do this was an investment from a social impact investment over multiple years that gave us really the bandwidth to think as big and to execute as big as we were thinking. So, I want to, it's not just about nonprofit leaders, because I think nonprofit leaders often think big, but oftentimes we're not given the resources to execute as big as our thoughts. And so to the funder community, there has to be that allowance for big, bold, ambitious thinking. And with that, this space for failure as a tool for learning. And we, developed this intense culture of learning and setting norms about celebrating knowledge failure. You get to change your mind. One of the things that we learned and turned into a mantra, we learned it from a person named Anne Chang, who has a fantastic book called Lean Impact. We fall in love with the problem, not the solution, because solutions are transient. They are, impacted by environments and they can be limiting. But we want to double down on what our problem is, and often redefining that problem, so we're coming up with the right solutions that work in the right time. So those are some of the things that we live by in an organization, that really help us have a big vision for impact. And then thinking about how scale, the different ways you can scale, right? And, we provide direct services to individual families through the channel of affordable housing and through relationships with public housing, with affordable housing providers. And we recognize that kind of system, that ecosystem, there's a ton of complexity, a ton of bureaucracy. So that offers us opportunity for scale, probably more growth than scale. And there's a difference. And that may be limited. So another way we've been approaching the work is, okay, as we become better in the work we do and we learn lessons and build our internal capacity, can we support other organizations? Because we're not going to partner with every housing provider that can deliver this service to families, but how can we leverage our learnings to make them better? So we've built a learning online community platform called FSS Link, that, we had some very modest goals. Just could we get a couple hundred folks to sign up and get access to newsletters and an online discussion board and some resources we would post. And that was in June 2019 when it launched. FSS Link now has, nearly 2,000 subscribers nationally, paid membership. We are, providing a ton of very specific resources to help folks be better at their work. And again, it's a place for us to push out the things we learn, because it's not enough for us to sit and pat ourselves on the back about how well we're doing in supporting families. We want to help others to be well too. Another big part of our kind of scale and impact journey, again, has been on the policy side. We joke that we've gone from being, seventh person off the bench or junior varsity to varsity, and now, seventh off the bench, just to use a basketball analogy, to like a starter. Because if we don't change the conditions under which this work happens, then we'll always have limited scale opportunities and impact. So we want to kind of identify and knock down those policy barriers that make it hard for us to do our work and hard for our families to build assets. So that's been a big growing part of our work and how we think about impact. And then I'll add another piece is really technology. March 11, 2020 is when we closed our doors in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the funny thing is, before that, we were planning the launch of a remote service pilot. And then the universe gave us the ideal laboratory to test all of our remote service theories, because we were trying to understand, could we do our financial coaching work and service delivery work to families in a completely remote environment? We wanted to understand, cost. Can we maintain the same or better outcomes? Could we maintain same or better outcomes in terms of client satisfaction? And so now we had, this right laboratory to test all those things. Could we enroll families in our programs, right, through the distance? So we started building this enrollment tool with the help of Next Step. And I just have to thank you, Sean, for helping us think about how to resource this work. Initially, we were going to go pay a big consultant a ton of money and to build some opinionated thing that may not really give us what we wanted. But at that moment, we learned how to start small and iterate. Like, think big, but start small in terms of the product, and then let the end user, let the clients help shape the product. So through this iterative process and constant testing and pressure testing. And, since then, we've built this amazing tool that has helped grow, help us increase enrollment 200%, 300%, speed up the process. Families can do it from their phones. We have this amazing story when we first started in our early days of testing, when we had our prototype and we were sharing with others, like, one of our clients told us she did it in a passenger seat of a car. And the enrollment process before then, like, you would have to go and do a workshop and then submit an application in person and sign it. And that means for our families taking off from work, finding childcare, catching public transportation. And like, why are all these barriers up? And these are things that we have control of. So we're like, we always think about how can we make a frictionless process, or as reduced friction as possible. And so we wanted this portal where they could both kind of be oriented to the program, understand how it works, get to see testimonials and stories from folks who've been through the program, review, and then sign all the documents they need to evidence their enrollment, and then schedule an appointment with their financial coach. And we built this amazing tool that allows them to do all of those things. And now we're at the stage now that we move from our prototype to our MVP, now to like our full enterprise product. Now we're thinking about how to license it so that others can get access to this phenomenal tool. So it's just been an amazing journey. You've been a terrific support as our strategic product manager and our guide along the way, and even as a developer. And we, it's just a terrific story of how you can really leverage technology to amplify your impact and also accelerate that impact over time. So this is what Compass is. We're a learning culture. We, every member of our team has this sense of try, fail, test, iterate, learn at the end of the day. That's what matters to me at the end of the day, that we are just trying new things all the time. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is sacrosanct. We always are looking for ways to do our work better and be better for the families who deserve better.
Amazing. Just so eloquent. Thank you yet again. And the culture is infectious. You can hear it, right? I was on a call where with the Compass team recent as this week, and one of the team members was once they learned what it was going to be, the work that they were going to be doing at Compass, the way they
Mhm.
described it is like, I can't not do this work. Like I have to do
Mm.
this. This is so important and such a good fit for me and everything about what I want to do. And just like, I hear that stuff all the time from your team. And I know that is a huge component of your leadership and the team that you've built and all the amazing people at Compass, the way that you think about solving these problems on such a scale to drive amazing impact. And it's just been an honor. Thank you so much for the opportunity, number one. And, you know, being able to witness these transformations, but do it with the organization is one of the coolest parts, right? Like you
Mhm.
described, right? Technology and software can be intimidating because there's so many moving pieces. It's a whole world, right? And if you don't live in that world, it can be scary because a lot of people have spent a lot of money and time and not gotten a lot of great results. What's been really cool about some of the resources you've shared, like Anne May Chang's Lean Impact and process that we follow to kind of get to where we are as an organization, is you can do a lot with a little. You can go really far by just doing like quick and dirty stuff, right? You can build
Mhm.
prototypes, you can test them, you can incorporate your team in the process, you can do interviews with clients and customers. And that's been really special to make sure that we move as quickly as we can. We make the most effectiveness out of the resources that we have to drive impact, which is what matters most, right? Like put our dollars where it's going to have most dramatic impact for the people that matters most for. And that's been an absolute honor to be able to do that with you. So I thank you for that opportunity. I'm very excited about where we're going. Hearing the results have been super exciting from the folks that have been using it and the families they've been experiencing with, but being able to increase enrollment up to 300% with less than half the time has been, a dramatic transformation for the people we've been talking about. So that's been super cool. And now we're focused on, the other opportunities, like you mentioned, like licensing it to other organizations, right?
Mhm.
Sharing the ability to drive impact for these other organizations who have similar challenges, and moving on next to solving the other bottlenecks. Like how do we
Right.
build a tool to increase the leverage of our coaches to help this this new wave and an increased volume of clients? So the story continues, right? The bottleneck never goes away. It just moves. And I'm excited about that as well, too, because we can continue to follow that process all the way home. So it's been an incredible opportunity, and I can't thank you enough. And thank you for being here and sharing this story and your time with me as well, too, to help, inspire others who are hoping to do the same thing. And it's just Compass is the best example I can think of in terms of what you want to do at an organization like Compass, and what's possible in terms of
Yeah.
the investments that you make and the strategy that you take, and better understanding that, and for others to have the opportunity to learn from you, I know it's going to be really valuable for a lot of people. So again, thank you so much, Markita. And I've got a couple questions for you before I let you go, and feel free to share any other insight you have
Yeah.
as well too. My first question before I let you go is, where can people go to learn more about the Compass Working Capital Organization, get more involved, help with, whatever way that they can?
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Sean. So folks who are interested can go to compassworkingcapital.org. We've actually just published our 7-year strategic plan and refreshed mission and vision. So you'll get to see our vision for the future and how we plan to continue to grow as an organization, and support our work and lean into being an impactful organization over the next several years, and the kind of different segments of work and how we intend to drive them. We have posted it in an interactive way so that it feels a little fun. There's some clicking that you can engage in. But for folks who just like an old school narrative, we have our strategic plan perspective in PDF format as well. So that's a place where folks can learn more about our work. And then definitely sign up for our newsletters and our mailing list. We love to grow our stakeholder community. A big part of our stakeholder community are graduates and current clients of our work. But we want more folks nationally to join us in our movement and helping us to drive this work forward. I love that you mentioned that our work is really about expanding bottlenecks, right? Because I think that this is something that it can be replicated in all parts of our social safety net. And you think about all the ways that folks are trying to look for solutions to those problems, or they first need to see them as problems in the first place, right? Why are we making it so hard for people experiencing poverty to get access to resources? It should not be as expensive as it is to be poor. Being poor in America is not just hard because there is a lack of resources. It's hard because we make it expensive and we make it difficult to get access to those resources, right? And so, we all need to re-examine the folks who are gatekeepers or who have access to resources that people experiencing poverty could benefit from, need to look at all of their processes from start to finish and sit down across from a recipient of those services and just do a walkthrough. When we first built the enrollment portal with Next Step, you were leading us through these moderated sessions where, it was I joke and say it was kind of like the MacGyver tape and paperclip version of the enrollment portal before we built out the big fancy thing that became our enterprise solution. But I love that, like the idea of starting small to learn, um, while maintaining the big idea. And it was so cost effective. It was insane. And I kept saying, wait, are you sure this is the budget? When talking with our director of innovation, George Ritter, he's like, yeah, this is the budget. It's not that much. Well, all right then. But it gave us so much learning to have our teams sit down with our clients and just watch as they use the tool, or even through Zoom, record how they use the tool and get a real time feedback on what worked, what didn't make sense, what was confusing. Basically, start, stop, continue. What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? What should we continue? Um, and we did that, and that just increased our learning. And then you see the evolution of the tool. I think there's a brand of folks out there who think that like they can just solve poverty with technology, and that's crap. I think technology has a role in reducing inefficiencies in how we deliver poverty disrupting services. So it can be an intervention, but it's not in itself, it's a solution. It helps to amplify solutions. It helps to um, increase the impact of solutions or the efficiency of solutions. And so, to be clear, as an organization, Compass welcomes technology, but we never see it as an in and of itself. We want it to be a support for the work we do, and we want it to enhance the relationship with people, not supplant the relationship with people. And we feel like you've known that, you've been along with us in that journey and have that same perspective. We never just want to introduce a tool for the sake of introducing a tool. It's always understanding what's the value to family, what's the value to us and our team, and ultimately, how does it help us support our impact story?
Well said. So much insight there. That's really valuable about how to really harness the potential and really the strengths of software and technology.
Yeah.
Because there are traps to fall into, which you've described so well, where it's technology doesn't make up for a broken or missing process. You have to have a process first and foremost. That's fundamental to everything that you're doing. But technology can help you do it faster, more cost effectively, more efficiently, to reach greater scale if you leverage it the right way, right? You don't need to go down those rabbit holes. You don't need to spend a lot. You can do a lot with a little. So if you feel yourself spinning your wheels or getting stuck and budget overruns and it's taking too long and stuff like that, if you're experiencing any of that kind of stuff, you're doing it wrong, right? Like this is the perfect example of how you can move quickly, iterate, test, get feedback, and then ultimately wind up with something relatively quickly and cost effectively that starts delivering results almost immediately, which was the most exciting part of the project. And now it's gotten even more exciting as we're figuring out kind of how to scale from there. And other organizations taking notice, like, hey, we have that challenge too. Can we gain access to it? So it continues to snowball from there, which is great. And then once we get an opportunity to catch up there, we can button up everything that we want to and add the extra features. But it's important for it to be driven by, as you mentioned in the beginning, right? Fall in love with the problem, right? We don't want to lead with a solution. We want to fall in love with the problem and understand how we can help best. And like you said, technology can play a role in that, but it isn't of and in itself the solution. So excellent, wise words for sure in terms of like how to leverage these strategies. And then last question I have for you, Markita, is who should reach out to you and how can they get in touch?
Thank you for that, Sean. So we are interested in folks who want to be part of this journey with us. I think the best way to support us is to amplify our work. So when you see us posting on LinkedIn and other platforms, limited platforms, but definitely repost, share, um, you know, if you talk to your lawmakers, talk to your policymakers, and help them think about the role that asset building can play in our anti-poverty work. Oftentimes, anti-poverty work is hyper focused on income, and income is important. And we often talk about, when we talk about poverty and who's poor, we talk about a deficit in income and income poverty. I'm from Philly. Philly has the unenviable position of being like the poorest big city in America. And they talk about our, income poverty rate around 25%. It's been hovering there for the last 10 or 15 years or so. But the asset poverty rate is over 40%. And that is a conversation that's not being had. And we want more people to have that conversation because it tells a bigger story about who's experienced financial challenge. And it means different resources need to be brought to bear to help reduce those challenges. So that's really helpful. And obviously, donors, individual donors, institutional donors who want to help us with this 7-year strategic plan. Again, it's filled with ambition and practicality. We want to keep our heads to the sky, but our feet on the ground. We want to, it's very much grounded in our values and our belief in our sense of impact. But it is ambitious because we want to move the needle. We want to grow our direct service by 4x. And we want to make major shifts in the policy landscape and really get to that opt-out enrollment that we named and move from this current opt-in model. And that takes some big changes, at the Department of Housing and Urban Development and be able to test opt-out. We've tested it on a small scale, but we want to test it on a big scale. Remember, we're a learning organization, so we're not just saying flip a switch and have everybody kind of enroll in this program tomorrow. We want to understand cost and feasibility and outcomes and impact. So we just need the opportunity to do that. And thankfully, there's some folks within the federal agencies and members of Congress who have been supportive of this work. And we just need them to help us move it forward and get us to a place where we can start to really test opt-out on a growing scale to understand if this could present a completely new model for thinking about the delivery of subsidized housing. So I invite folks to go to our website to learn more, and then reach out if they have any questions and want to be part of this journey with us.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, Markita. And I can't say enough good things about the Compass organization, your leadership, your team, everything from anyone who may be listening to, if you want to get involved and become a member or a part of such an incredible mission and work for an amazing team, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. The Compass team never fails to disappoint. And it's always so exciting to work with them because they're so energized and amped up about all the incredible work that they're doing, and all the way to funders and sources of donation as well, too. If you want your dollars to go to a good cause and you want to see dramatic results, you need to talk to Markita ASAP because I have seen such remarkable things happen at the Compass Working Capital Organization led by her leadership. So can't say enough good things, Markita. It's been an absolute honor working together. And I know this is just the beginning. I'm super excited to see what the future holds and, for others to dive into your 7-year plan as well, too, because there's some really exciting stuff in there. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your incredible experience and knowledge with both myself and our audience.
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate your support tremendously, your support as a partner in this work, and in amplifying our work. Thank you so much. And thank you to your audience for listening.